Mark sat inside the small research station built near the coast. The hum of computers and sonar machines filled the quiet room as he studied the screen in front of him. Blue lines shifted up and down, showing the normal rhythm of ocean currents and whale calls. He had seen this pattern many times before. Yet something new caught his attention. A sharp sound pulsed through the signal feed, repeating at even intervals. Mark leaned closer. At first, he thought it was interference from their equipment. The sea often played tricks with sound, bouncing echoes off rocks and cliffs. But this sound was different. It had weight, like a deliberate beat, not a random echo. He pressed a button to replay the recording. Again the pulse came, steady and clear, like the heartbeat of the ocean. Anna, his closest friend on the team, walked in carrying a notebook. She noticed his focused expression and asked what he had found. Mark pointed to the screen. She listened carefully as the signal repeated. Her eyes narrowed in thought. She had studied marine life for years, and she knew the calls of whales and dolphins well. This sound was not from any creature she recognized. The more they listened, the stranger it felt. The pulse shifted slightly after every cycle, almost as if adjusting itself. Mark tapped the screen with his finger. "It is like it wants to be understood," he said softly. Anna frowned but nodded. The idea sounded unusual, yet she felt the same. Over the next week, Mark kept checking the recordings. The pulse never stopped. Every night it returned, sometimes stronger, sometimes weaker, but always present. The pattern seemed to drift deeper into the trench far out in the ocean. When he showed the data to the senior researchers, they dismissed it as natural. They told him to focus on the coral study and leave odd noises alone. But Mark could not ignore it. Each night he sat alone in the station, listening to the beat echo through the speakers. It felt alive. The ocean was speaking in a voice no one else wanted to hear. He began to imagine what might rest at the bottom of the trench. Ancient rocks, forgotten shipwrecks, or perhaps something far older than human history. One evening, as the sun sank low over the sea, Mark stood on the deck of the station and stared at the horizon. Waves rolled endlessly under the orange light. He closed his eyes and thought about the signal. A strange calm filled him, mixed with curiosity that burned stronger each day. The ocean was hiding something, and it wanted to be found. The next morning, he convinced Anna to join him in checking the trench. She agreed, though she warned that they needed permission to use the submersible. Mark promised they would be careful. He believed that if they followed the signal, they would uncover something that could change everything they knew about the sea. For the next 2 days, they prepared quietly. Mark checked the equipment, loaded extra oxygen tanks, and tested the lights. Anna mapped out the route into the trench. The deeper they went, the darker and colder it would become. Few people had ever dared to explore that depth. On the third night, as Mark listened again to the pulse, he noticed something new. The signal shifted in tone, rising and falling in a rhythm that almost formed words. His heart raced as he replayed it. He leaned forward, straining to catch the faint changes. It was not just a call. It was a message, though in a language he could not yet understand. He turned to Anna and said, "Tomorrow we go down. We cannot wait any longer." She looked at him, unsure, but his voice carried a certainty she had never heard before. The ocean was calling, and Mark was ready to answer. That night, sleep refused to come. Mark lay awake, listening to the faint hum of machines in the station. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw dark waters and ancient walls buried beneath them. He felt as though something below the surface was waiting for him, watching, testing if he was brave enough to descend. When dawn broke, he stood on the deck once again. The ocean stretched out before him, calm and endless. The signal pulsed faintly in his mind, steady as a drum beat. Mark took a deep breath. The journey was about to begin. The morning air was cool as Mark and Anna stood by the submersible. The small craft sat on the water like a white shell, built for deep dives but rarely used. Engineers had tested it many times, but few people had taken it into the trench. Mark ran his hand along the metal surface, feeling both excitement and tension. This was the vessel that would take them into the unknown. Anna checked the supply crates. Oxygen tanks, food packs, emergency tools, and strong lamps were stacked neatly inside. She double-checked the systems with calm precision. Unlike Mark, who carried restless energy, she believed in preparation and steady focus. "If we are going to do this, we do it right," she said firmly. Mark nodded. He respected her caution, even though his heart pushed him forward with impatience. By noon, everything was ready. The submersible door shut with a heavy click, sealing them inside. The control panel glowed softly, showing pressure readings and navigation maps. Anna took the pilot seat while Mark handled sonar. Outside, the ocean stretched wide and blue, hiding its deepest secrets below. With a low hum, the craft began to sink. Water covered the windows as sunlight turned from gold to green, then to deep blue. The surface world grew distant until it vanished. Mark stared out into the growing darkness, pressing his face near the glass. Shadows drifted by, schools of fish, flashes of silver, and long shapes gliding away into the deep. The descent was slow but steady. At first, the view remained familiar. Coral walls rose around them, glowing faintly with small creatures that carried their own light. Anna guided the sub through narrow spaces with careful hands. The sonar beeped rhythmically, marking their progress. But as they went deeper, the light faded. The blue became darker until it turned black. The lamps on the submersible flicked on, sending wide beams through the water. Dust and tiny organisms floated like stars. Mark whispered to himself that it felt like drifting into space. The deeper they sank, the stronger the strange signal grew. It echoed through their instruments, no longer faint but steady and clear. Each pulse seemed to vibrate in their bones. Mark adjusted the receiver. "It is guiding us," he said quietly. Anna kept her eyes on the controls, but she could not deny the truth. The signal pulled them forward like a call that could not be ignored. An hour passed, then another. Pressure readings climbed higher. The craft groaned lightly under the weight of the sea. Yet it held strong, built for depths few humans dared to reach. Outside the window, the seabed began to appear vast, rocky plains covered in silt and strange plant life. Then, as they moved closer to the trench floor, something massive appeared out of the darkness. Anna slowed the engines. The lamps revealed tall structures rising from the ground. At first, they looked like cliffs. But as the beams swept across them, the shapes formed walls and towers. Stone blocks stood in precise lines, covered in carvings. Some had collapsed, while others remained firm, as if untouched by time. Mark's breath caught. "It is a city," he whispered. Anna said nothing, her hands tightening on the controls. The carvings glowed faintly, reflecting the light in patterns that looked almost alive. They guided the sub closer, circling the largest structure. It was not just a city. It was a temple. A wide staircase led up to a great doorway sealed by stone. Pillars lined the entrance, carved with symbols that mixed circles, stars, and lines. Some resembled constellations. Others looked like words from a language unknown to them. The signal grew sharp and loud inside the submersible. It seemed to come from the doorway itself. Mark pressed his headphones tighter, straining to catch the shifts in tone. His pulse raced with every beat. It was not random sound. It was speaking. Anna touched his shoulder, breaking his trance. "We should not go further without thinking," she warned. "This place could be dangerous." But Mark's eyes shone with determination. "We came for this," he said firmly. "If we turn back now, we may never know what waits inside." Anna looked into his face. She saw both fear and wonder. After a long silence, she sighed. "Then we go together. No reckless moves?" "Agreed." Mark nodded quickly. They set the submersible down on the seabed near the base of the temple. Dust swirled as the landing legs touched stone. For a moment, silence filled the cabin, broken only by the hum of machinery and the endless pulse of the signal. Mark placed his hand against the glass, staring at the massive doorway. He could almost feel the weight of centuries pressing against it. Somewhere beyond those walls, something waited. He could sense it as surely as he sensed the beating of his own heart. Anna switched off the main engines. "We rest here for now," she said. "Tomorrow we step outside." Mark leaned back in his seat, but his eyes never left the glowing carvings. He knew that once they crossed that threshold, their lives would never be the same again. The lights inside the submersible cast long shadows across the stone doorway. Mark barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he dreamed of symbols shifting and voices whispering from the deep. Anna rested in her seat with her arms crossed, but her eyes often opened, glancing at the silent temple outside. Both of them felt the same weight pressing down on them. When morning light filtered faintly from above, though almost invisible at this depth, they prepared to step out. Mark checked the suits and helmets. Anna made sure the oxygen tanks were sealed and working. The pressure at this depth could crush them in seconds if anything failed, but their equipment was built strong. They exchanged a firm nod. There was no turning back now. The hatch of the submersible opened slowly, releasing a cloud of bubbles. Cold water rushed in as they stepped out carefully onto the seabed. Their boots sank slightly into the silt, stirring clouds that floated around them like mist. The beams of their helmet lamps cut through the darkness, landing on the massive temple walls. The carvings were clearer up close. Lines curved into patterns of stars, spirals, and figures that looked like both humans and something not human at all. Some symbols glowed faintly, as if the stone carried its own light. Mark reached out and touched one of the carvings with his gloved hand. The stone was smooth, colder than the water around it. Then it happened. The carvings flickered, and a soft pulse of light ran across the doorway. The signal they had been hearing all week grew louder, no longer coming through machines but echoing directly through the water. It was a sound they felt in their bones. Anna gasped, stepping back. Mark stood frozen, staring at the stone as cracks of light spread outward like veins. The great doorway trembled. Dust and fragments of stone floated into the water as the sealed entrance began to move. A deep groan filled the trench, louder than any storm. Slowly, the doorway slid open, revealing a dark corridor glowing faintly from within. Mark's heart raced. He turned to Anna, his voice shaking with awe. "It is opening for us." Anna's eyes narrowed. "Or it is opening because we woke it? That does not mean we are welcome." Still, she followed as Mark stepped forward, his curiosity stronger than his fear. Inside, the walls were lined with strange machines built into the stone. They looked like statues at first, but when the two humans passed, the machines turned their heads to follow. Eyes of glass lit up, glowing blue. Mechanical arms shifted slightly, testing the water around them. Anna's hand tightened around her tool belt. Mark raised a hand slowly, as if greeting the silent watchers. Deeper inside, the corridor widened into a vast hall. Pillars rose high above them, carved with the same glowing symbols. In the center stood a platform covered in dust. As they approached, streams of light flickered to life along the walls. The temple seemed to awaken piece by piece, each corner humming with long-forgotten energy. Mark whispered, "This place has been waiting." Suddenly, the platform lit up. A column of light rose from it, filling the chamber. Within the glow, shapes appeared, figures of tall beings with elongated forms and bright eyes. They were not solid, but memories, shadows left behind. The figures moved slowly, showing scenes of building, war, and collapse. The last vision was of the temple sinking beneath the ocean. Then the images faded, leaving the hall silent again. Anna's voice was steady, though her face was pale. They were not from Earth. Mark nodded slowly. His mind spun with questions. Who had they been, and why had they built this temple? Why hide it at the bottom of the ocean? Before he could think further, a deep sound rumbled behind them. From the far wall, stone shifted again. A figure rose from the ground itself, tall and heavy, made of both metal and rock. Its eyes glowed the same blue as the machines. It lifted its head and looked directly at them. Anna stepped back, gripping Mark's arm. The figure's chest opened slightly, releasing a wave of sound that filled the hall. Unlike the pulse before, this was shaped, clear, and commanding. The words echoed inside their minds rather than through their ears. "You have entered the sanctuary of the first builders," the voice declared. Mark and Anna froze. The guardian had awakened. The figure stood motionless after speaking, its gaze fixed on them. The machines along the walls hummed softly, as if waiting for a command. The water inside the hall no longer felt still but alive, carrying the presence of something ancient and powerful. Mark forced himself to take a breath. His voice shook, but he spoke clearly. "We mean no harm. We only followed the signal." The guardian tilted its head, studying him with eyes like glowing crystals. For a long moment, it did not move. Then, slowly, it raised one massive arm. The machines around the hall straightened, lights flashing. The temple had fully awakened, and it was watching them. Anna's heart pounded in her chest. She whispered, "Mark, we may have opened a door we cannot close." Mark stared at the guardian, his pulse racing. Somewhere inside, beyond fear, he felt something else: recognition. The signal had called them, and now the temple had answered. The great figure stood tall in the glowing hall, its body a mix of stone and shining metal. Blue light burned in its eyes as it looked at Mark and Anna. The silence was heavy, broken only by the hum of the machines along the walls. Mark felt as if the water itself was waiting for what the guardian would say next. At last, the deep voice echoed again, not through sound but inside their minds. "You have crossed into the sanctuary of the first builders. Few have entered. Fewer have left. Why do you come here?" Mark swallowed hard, his throat dry even though he was surrounded by water. He glanced at Anna, then stepped forward slowly. His words came out steady, though his heart raced. "We followed the signal. We heard your call. We wanted to understand. The guardian's eyes narrowed, glowing brighter. The hall shuddered as if the temple itself breathed. The signal was not meant for all ears. It was a test. To follow it was to prove your will. To enter was to risk everything. And now you stand before me. Anna tightened her grip on her tool belt. What are you? What is this place? She asked firmly. Her voice did not tremble, though her mind was filled with unease. The guardian's head lifted slowly. We are the first builders, a people older than your history, wanderers between stars. This temple was made long ago, hidden in the depths of your ocean, after a great war consumed our worlds. We placed our knowledge here, guarded by silence and by the sea. Mark and Anna stood still, listening with wide eyes. The voice carried both strength and sorrow. The guardian lowered its arm, pointing toward the glowing pillars. These halls contain memories of our rise and our fall. We gave fire to the stars, but in time, fire turned to ashes. War devoured us. This temple became a refuge, a vault of wisdom to be found by those who might walk a better path. The images that had flickered before now returned. Holograms filled the hall once more, showing vast cities rising on distant planets, fleets of ships crossing the skies, and then fire raining down as those same fleets turned upon each other. The scenes shifted to oceans swallowing the temple, burying it deep beneath the waves. The light dimmed, leaving silence again. Anna's voice was quiet. You left this here for us. The guardian turned its gaze upon her. We left this for those who would prove worthy. Not all who find it are fit to hold its power. Knowledge can build, but it can also destroy. You, humans of Earth, stand now where many have stood before. Your kind is young, yet bold. The question is not whether you can take what lies here. The question is whether you should. Mark felt a chill move through him. He had dreamed of discovery, of proof that humanity was not alone. But the guardian's words carried warning like a heavy stone. Anna stepped closer, her voice steady. If you believe we are not ready, why let us enter at all? The guardian's chest glowed brighter. Because to be ready, you must first be tested. You showed courage in following the signal. You showed resolve in stepping through the door. But resolve alone is not enough. You will face trials. Only through them will the temple know if humanity is worthy. Mark's fists tightened. And if we fail, the guardian's eyes flared like fire. Then the temple will return to silence, and the ocean will bury you with it. The hall trembled as the guardian raised both arms. The machines along the walls shifted, their blue eyes glowing brighter. The floor beneath them split open, revealing a stairway descending into darkness. Beyond lies the chamber of trials, the guardian said. It will test not only your strength but your heart. Many who came before you failed. Their voices are now part of the sea. Mark and Anna exchanged a long look. Fear showed in Anna's eyes, but so did determination. Mark felt his chest tighten with both dread and excitement. They had come too far to turn back now. Anna spoke first, her voice calm but firm. We accept. Whatever the trial may be, we will face it together. Mark nodded. We are ready. The guardian lowered its arms, and for the first time, the deep light in its eyes softened. Then step forward, children of Earth. Let your choices prove your worth. The fate of your people may rest on how you walk this path. The stairway glowed faintly, leading down into the unknown. Mark and Anna took a deep breath and moved toward it. Each step felt heavier than the last, yet their resolve carried them forward. Behind them, the guardian watched in silence, its glowing eyes following them until they disappeared into the depths below. For the first time since they had begun their descent into the trench, Mark understood that their journey was not just about discovery. It was about judgment. The ocean had hidden more than ruins. It had hidden a test older than human history. And now that test had awakened. The stairway seemed endless as Mark and Anna moved downward. Their lamps cast beams of light across the stone steps, but the glow from the walls guided them as well. Strange symbols shifted as they passed, almost as if the temple itself watched them take each step. The air inside their helmets felt heavy, and the silence pressed on them like a weight. At last, the stairway opened into a wide chamber. The floor was smooth, carved from dark stone that gleamed faintly. The ceiling was high and arched, covered in carvings of stars and waves. At the center of the room stood a raised platform surrounded by shallow pools of water. As they stepped closer, the pools rippled even though no current moved through them. Then the voice of the guardian filled the chamber, deep and steady. You who seek the legacy of the first builders must prove your worth. The trial begins now. The pools of water began to rise, forming shapes that twisted into storms and shadows. Walls of water surged up around Mark and Anna, spinning with waves that crashed and thundered even under the ocean. The air shook inside their helmets as the illusion grew stronger. Mark stumbled back as a massive wave crashed down toward him. Instinct made him raise his arms, but the water passed through his body without breaking him. Still, he felt the fear of drowning, the cold grip of the sea closing over him. His breath came in sharp gasps. Anna's voice rang through the helmet comms. It is not real. It wants us to believe it, but it is not real. Mark steadied himself, gripping the floor with both boots. The storm raged around them, thunder echoing through the chamber, lightning flashing across the carved ceiling. Each bolt revealed ghostly figures in the waves, faces twisted in anger, hands reaching out as if to pull them under. The guardian's voice spoke again. Do you fear what you cannot fight? Do you trust what you cannot see? The trial is not of strength, but of heart. Mark closed his eyes for a moment, forcing himself to breathe slowly. Fear pressed on him, but Anna's calm voice anchored him. He looked across the chamber and saw her standing firm, her light steady against the storm. He felt courage rise again. The storm shifted. The ground cracked, and the chamber seemed to tilt. Illusions of collapsing stone and falling pillars rained down. One block broke free above Anna, crashing toward her. For a moment Mark forgot it was illusion. He ran without thinking, throwing himself against her and pushing her aside. The block shattered into mist as it hit the floor. Anna looked at him, her eyes wide behind the helmet glass. You knew it wasn't real, she said. Mark shook his head. I couldn't take the chance. Not with you. Her face softened. She reached out, gripping his arm. Then we stand together. Always. As those words passed between them, the storm began to fade. The waves slowed, the thunder grew distant, and the falling stones dissolved into mist. The pools calmed, leaving the chamber silent once more. The guardian's voice returned, deeper now, carrying a note of respect. You chose loyalty over fear. You chose to protect each other even when doubt weighed upon you. This is the path of worth. The platform at the center of the room began to glow. Lines of light ran across the floor, forming a circle around them. The carvings on the ceiling blazed like stars. The chamber shook, not in anger but in release, as if the temple itself approved of their choice. Mark and Anna stood side by side, breathing hard but unbroken. They had passed the first trial. Yet they knew it was not the end. Anna whispered, her voice calm but firm. It was never about fighting. It was about who we are. Mark nodded slowly. And maybe about who we can become. A new doorway opened on the far side of the chamber. Beyond it, faint light glowed, calling them deeper into the temple. The guardian's voice echoed once more. You have faced the trial of storms and shadows. Others may still wait. Take what you have learned, for greater tests will come. The legacy is not given lightly. Mark looked at Anna, his chest filled with both relief and determination. We keep moving, he said. She gave a small smile. Yes. Together. They stepped through the new doorway, leaving the chamber of storms behind. The temple's corridors stretched before them, glowing with hidden power. The silence felt different now, not heavy with warning but alive with possibility. Mark felt the pulse of the signal again, steady as a heartbeat. It no longer sounded like a threat but like guidance. He realized then that the temple was not only testing them. It was also teaching them. As they walked, Anna glanced at him. Do you think others have passed this trial before? Mark shook his head slowly. If they had, the world above would not be the same. I think we are the first. Her hand brushed his arm, steady and sure. Then let us not be the last. Together they moved deeper, carrying with them the weight of what they had faced. Behind them the chamber grew still again, the pools calm, the storm gone. The trial had ended, but the temple still watched, waiting to see what choices they would make next. The corridor stretched ahead, dimly lit by glowing lines in the walls. Mark and Anna walked side by side, the silence around them heavy but not threatening. The temple seemed alive, its pulse steady beneath their feet. Each step carried them closer to a place that no human had seen in centuries, perhaps millennia. As they rounded a corner, a massive doorway appeared. It was wider and taller than any before, carved with symbols that shimmered like liquid metal. Faint light spilled from the cracks around it. Anna stepped closer, tracing the carvings with her gloved hand. This is it, she whispered. This is where the knowledge is stored. Mark nodded, his eyes wide. The temple called us here for this. He reached out and pressed his hand to the center of the doorway. Immediately, a soft hum ran through the walls, vibrating beneath their boots. The doorway began to open slowly, revealing a chamber filled with crystal-like structures. Inside, the room was immense. Towers of transparent crystals rose from the floor, reflecting light in every direction. Each crystal contained images that moved, glowing with scenes of stars, planets, and ships traveling between them. The air was filled with a soft hum, almost like a song. Mark and Anna stepped carefully, their reflections stretching across the crystal surfaces. Anna's voice trembled slightly. It is like a library of the stars. Mark nodded, awe in his eyes. It is more than that. It is the history of a civilization older than ours. As they moved closer, the crystals seemed to respond to their presence. Images shifted to show cities of tall buildings, flying ships, and people unlike humans, with elongated limbs and bright eyes. Scenes of work, celebration, and learning played across the surfaces. Then the images changed, showing war, destruction, and planets reduced to ruins. Mark swallowed hard. They built all of this, and then it was lost. Anna placed a hand on one crystal. Light ran up her arm and into her helmet. Her mind filled with visions of machines and technology beyond anything humans had ever created. She gasped but held her ground. The temple wants us to understand. Not just to see, but to learn. A sudden pulse ran through the room, brighter than before. The guardian's voice filled their minds again. This vault holds our knowledge, our experiences, our wisdom. You may take what you understand, but you must respect it. Knowledge without wisdom brings ruin. You are capable, but your people must be ready. Mark nodded slowly. We will protect it. We will not misuse it. The crystals responded, showing tools, machines, and ships that could move faster than light. Maps of galaxies and stars, methods of harnessing energy, and even ways to heal injuries far beyond modern medicine appeared. Mark felt a surge of hope. Humanity could learn, could grow, could rise to new heights if they were careful. Anna studied one crystal closely. It is amazing, she whispered. But it is also dangerous. We must be careful what we take from this place. The guardian's voice echoed again. Danger is always present where knowledge is great. That is why we test those who seek it. Courage and loyalty are not enough. You must also show wisdom and restraint. Mark walked slowly through the chamber, absorbing the images. His mind raced with ideas, possibilities, and responsibilities. He realized that this was more than discovery. This was a chance to shape the future. But he also knew that if humanity misused this knowledge, it could destroy itself. Anna came to his side, her hand resting lightly on his arm. We have to make sure this is used for good, she said softly. Not for power, not for war. For learning, for helping people. Mark nodded. Then we have our purpose. We are the guardians now, even if the temple is the true master. We carry this responsibility. The crystal towers seemed to pulse with approval, their light brightening and spreading across the chamber. The temple had allowed them here because they had proven themselves in the trial. The knowledge was not given freely, but earned. As they explored further, they found chambers containing more than just science and technology. There were images of culture, music, art, and ideas about life and cooperation. The first builders had valued not only power but understanding, compassion, and unity. Mark looked around and realized the truth. Humanity had the chance to learn, not only about technology but about how to grow as a species. The temple had chosen wisely in sending its signal to them. Anna smiled, a mix of relief and awe on her face. We must remember everything. This is not just a discovery. This is a responsibility. Mark placed a hand on one of the larger crystals, feeling the hum beneath his gloves. We will keep this safe. And we will help our people reach for it when they are ready. The light in the chamber pulsed again, softer now, like a heartbeat slowing. The guardian's voice whispered once more. Take what you can. Protect it. Teach only when the time is right. The ocean keeps its silence, but the knowledge lives in you now. Mark and Anna exchanged a glance, understanding the weight of what had been entrusted to them. They had found the heart of the temple, the greatest legacy of the first builders. The trials had tested them, and they had proven worthy. But the real journey was only beginning. They turned toward the exit, leaving the glowing crystals behind. Their steps were slow but confident. The temple had given them wisdom, but it had also reminded them of the responsibility that came with it. Humanity had been given a chance, and Mark and Anna would make sure it was not wasted. Mark and Anna moved slowly through the temple corridors, leaving the glowing crystal chamber behind. The pulse of the temple beneath their feet was steady, as if the building itself approved of their choices. Each step back toward the submersible was heavy with thought. They carried not only knowledge but responsibility, a burden that felt larger than the ocean around them. The stairway back up seemed shorter than before, though the darkness pressed in around them. The walls, once alien and strange, now felt alive in a different way. The symbols glowed faintly, guiding them upward like friendly lights. Neither Mark nor Anna spoke much. Words felt unnecessary. Their minds were full of images of stars, cities, and the lessons of the first builders. Finally, they reached the submersible. The hatch looked smaller now, almost ordinary after all they had seen. Anna checked the equipment carefully, securing oxygen and lights. Mark adjusted the controls and ran through every system twice. The submersible would carry them to the surface, but the journey was still dangerous. Pressure at these depths was relentless, and one mistake could be fatal. When the hatch closed and the hum of the engines began, Mark allowed himself a small breath of relief. They were leaving the temple, but the lessons of the deep stayed with them. The pulse of the signal had stopped, fading into silence. The temple had completed its part, now it was up to them to carry its legacy. As they rose, the darkness slowly gave way to faint light filtering from the surface. Shadows moved past the submersible windows, strange fish and glowing creatures, drifting quietly in the deep. Mark watched them, feeling a connection to the life around the temple. The ocean had guarded this place for centuries, and now it had allowed humans to see it. Anna spoke softly. "Do you think anyone will believe us when we return?" Mark shook his head, smiling faintly. "Not yet. And maybe that is better. The temple's knowledge is too important to be rushed. Humanity is not ready for it all at once. We must protect it until the time is right." Anna nodded. "We have to keep it secret, then. For now." The submersible continued its slow ascent. The pressure decreased, and the water grew warmer. Small schools of fish appeared near the surface, curious about the strange craft moving among them. Mark and Anna watched in quiet awe. The world above seemed calm and ordinary, but they knew it held potential for something extraordinary. Hours later, the submersible broke the surface. Sunlight glinted off the water, and the horizon stretched endlessly. They climbed out of the craft, breathing fresh air with deep relief. The weight of the ocean below still pressed in their minds, but the surface felt like a new beginning. Mark looked back at the endless water. "It is still there," he said. "Waiting." Anna smiled. "And it will wait until humanity is ready. We have done our part." Over the next days, they returned to their research station quietly. They avoided drawing attention to themselves, keeping the location of the temple secret. They knew that if governments or corporations learned of it, the knowledge could be misused. Instead, Mark began to write coded research notes, recording what they had seen, but carefully hiding the full truth. Anna worked on building a small network of trusted allies, people who could help protect the knowledge when the time came. They trained, learned, and prepared. The first builders had left a legacy of wisdom, but it was now in human hands. Mark and Anna understood that the ocean was only the beginning. Humanity's true test would come when it was ready to learn from the vault beneath the waves. Some nights, Mark and Anna would return to the shore, looking out at the dark water. The signal was gone, but a quiet hum lingered in their minds. They could feel the presence of the temple beneath the waves, patient and silent, waiting for a future generation worthy of its gifts. Mark often thought of the guardian, the trials, and the crystal chamber filled with knowledge. He understood now that the temple had chosen humans not because they were perfect but because they had the courage to face fear, the loyalty to protect one another, and the wisdom to respect what they found. These were qualities that could shape the future of their world. Anna, standing beside him, would often place her hand on his shoulder. "We are only the first," she said. "There will be others. And we must make sure they are ready." Mark nodded. "We will prepare them." Slowly, carefully. Humanity will rise, and one day, the world above and the knowledge below will meet. The ocean remained calm, the surface still reflecting the sky above. Yet beneath it, the temple waited. It held its secrets patiently, guarding the legacy of the first builders until the right time. And Mark and Anna had become its guardians on earth, entrusted with a task that could shape humanity's future. As the sun rose over the horizon, marking the start of another day, Mark and Anna looked toward the sea. They knew that their journey was far from over, but they also knew they had changed. Humanity had been given a chance, a path forward, and a guide from the stars. And the ocean kept its secret, patient and eternal, waiting for the day when humans would truly be ready to understand and protect what lay beneath.